product provided by Nintendo. Xenoblade is one of gaming's biggest and strangest rabbit holes. A story seemingly of 3 games that can be enjoyed separately, but when taken together, create a beautiful narrative that is truly one of a kind. But Xenoblade has an odd one out. A weird game that, while it is technically Xenoblade, in a lot of ways, the similarities die there. Sure, combat has the Xenoblade 1 horizontal art bar, but surely it's just a fun little space opera spin-off that's not all that important, right? Well, that was kind of the sentiment that surrounded Xenoblade X for almost a decade, but everything changed with the release of its remaster, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. Not only would the gameplay see a nifty new addition, not only would online see a new lease on life, not only would the game receive an artistic overhaul, but a new story would be added. Chapter 13. This chapter would buck every trend of Xenoblade X up to that point, but most notably, it would go on to become arguably the single biggest and most important section of story in Xenoblade history, making X not only important to the overall story of Xenoblade, but pivotal to the overall story Monolith have been weaving since the early days of Xenosaga. X changed everything. It connected everything. And in one of gaming's most daring endeavors, Xenoblade X was revealed to never have been a spin-off at all. Xenoblade wasn't simply a trilogy. It was never a trilogy. This story was a quadrilogy, just told out of order. Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition was the lifeblood flowing through everything. Hello, everybody. It's your boy Jmulls, and let's find the key we've lost.
Call it New Los Angeles.
It would be impossible to condense the entire experience of Xenoblade X into one simple video, so I'm not going to do that. What I am going to do is convey why I love this game so much, and why it is honestly one of the boldest games ever, and why Monolith Soft have the biggest set of balls in the industry for making this game. Far too often, and I'm also somewhat guilty of this, when talking about Xenoblade, I find a lot of people try to disclaim each of the games. And while I don't believe any disclaimer is truly necessary, what I will say is that while X isn't a perfect game, no game is. X is a game best approached with an open mind, unlike any other game you've ever played. The more you are willing to put into the game and learn about it, the more you will get out of it. You can't just approach it expecting to smash your controller and roll through the entire game. That comes later if you learn how to build. It's a game that puts you in this crazy, wild, alien world that feels like a lived-in world filled with crazy landscapes, bioluminescent forests, and just set pieces that'll have you both on the edge of your seat for more and with your jaw agape to the floor that this was a game originally for the Wii freaking U. No other game has impressed me visually like Xenoblade X, and it still continues to impress me to this day. It perfectly captures that sense of scale and wonder that I personally love and crave from sci-fi. Worlds that feel larger than comprehension with themes and creatures that feel almost unbelievable. The intro of Xenoblade X perfectly captures this feel, and the initial zone of Primordia just irradiates this wanderlust charm that has had its tendrils firmly in me, ever since I first played the game back in 2015. And each new location you travel to, each new zone you discover, just feels like Monolith standing at the top of the mountain with their fist in the air going, yeah baby, I am here. Some of the most impressive and beautiful set pieces that ever have existed in my opinion, that still inspire me creatively to this day. Many other games just do a desert. Well, here in X country, we don't just have a desert, we have one with a giant canyon in the middle that has a super boss flying around in it. Oh, and by the way, there's floating islands. Oh, and did I mention the freaking Halo ring that watches over the entire zone? As someone who grew up on Halo, this blew my mind at the time, and I still get giddy almost kicking my feet in the air just looking at it. I mean, talk about set pieces. By the way, there's a whole other desert.
Call it New Los Angeles.
The storyline to X is also equally as grandiose and epic as the world of Mira. The entire premise is that Earth got caught up in this alien war and humanity had to flee to the stars. The story of X follows the crew of one of those escape ships, the White Whale, that after the aliens catch up because they're jerks, the White Whale crashes onto Mira, the main setting for this game. And it's all about humanity trying to find a way to not only tame the wilds of this weird alien world, but carve out a new home for mankind. But it's not as simple as that. You see, the Lifehold contains many of the crew of the White Whale. We're just a small contingent, and the Lifehold is lost, and it's running out of power. All the while, the Ganglions, one of the factions responsible for Earth's destruction, hunts down the Lifehold in their quest to eradicate humanity. In a race against time and forces beyond comprehension, we must track down the Lifehold before the Ganglion can get to it, and before its power reserves run out. And over the course of this journey, I can't express how many twists and turns that we encounter. This story is huge, it's bold, and it's so dang good. And what the cast may lack in personal depth compared to the number games at least, it more than makes up for in number and breadth of personalities that really aid in filling out this world with memorable moments with characters at the hearts of each of these stories. Again, Xenoblade X is a game that you'll get as much out of as you put into it, if not more, but you do have to be willing to put into the game. A lot of the great character moments are entirely optional quests, predicated on going out with certain characters to experience their stories and sometimes have the stories of multiple characters intertwine and come together. If you wish to avoid those elements of the game, X will not mind, but you would be doing yourself a disservice. A lot of those quests fill out the world so beautifully, all the while unraveling it like a beautiful ball of yarn, so that yarn can then be used to create the quilt that is this game's story. The size of that quilt depends on how much yarn you yourself decide to put out and use. I think there's a beauty to that. One of the biggest themes of X is trying to carve out a home for not just yourself, but all of mankind on Mira. And the more work that you put into building that home, the more that world will feel like home, and the more engaged with it that you'll be.
Call it New Los Angeles.
What Xenoblade X also nails is the feeling of progression over the course of the game. I love the mixing of mobs in the overworld. There is a general trend of encountering higher level mobs when you get to the later zones, but you can find endgame mobs and high level mobs and even super bosses right out of the gate. And it makes the world feel like this primordial, untouched landscape ruled by survival of the fittest, and drives home just how dangerous Mira truly is and why so much effort has to be put in by mankind to find a way to make it habitable for people. Danger lurks behind every corner, and you have to keep your eyes peeled. Maybe a mob blocks your way when you're just starting out, so you have to plan your routes accordingly. Maybe get a bit cocky and try to test your mettle against something higher level than you, or you just don't pay attention and get ganked. You will feel how dangerous Mira can be quickly, but this goes back to one of my favorite design elements of X, the feeling of progression. You're not meant to be able to kill and defeat everything right out of the gate. Sure, early on you have to be on the lookout for these high-level mobs, but that makes them memorable. If everything was just simply a cakewalk, or doable at all times, everything would just end up feeling samey. It gives locations reasons to be remembered, not just because they look pretty, but because of what inhabits them. And later on, when you're higher level or have a firmer grasp on the game and come back to it, you might be able to treat that exact mob that once caused you so much pain the same way that it treated you. That is super satisfying, and one of my favorite parts of RPGs that so many games lose out on, when everything is either scaled to your level or the sense of danger and difficulty remains static throughout the game. X nails this, and it makes the progression of not just your level, not just your gear, not just your class level, but your own personal skill level feel like it's growing over the course of the game. And on top of all of this, it goes back to another element of this game's design that I think is truly brilliant, that I have never seen replicated in any other open world game. The way you interact with the world changes on nearly every level over the course of the game. And not in some hyper-gamey way like, oh, you've unlocked the ability to climb ladders, or congratulations, you've unlocked the ability to survive in the cold. Huzzah! No, your main power-up is a freaking giant robot! And the game is broken up into 3 main stages. Initially, you're on foot, exploring the giant world, finding ways to scale the terrain, getting creative with how you get around certain obstacles. And then you unlock your scale, your giant robot! And all of a sudden, the world scales accordingly. You're faster, you can jump higher and farther, and all of a sudden, ways that were locked off to you before now become the obvious ways to go. The world itself feels different because the way you are fundamentally interacting with it is now different because you've grown over the course of your journey. You have proven yourself. You've made memories in this world, and now it's time to see it from a whole new perspective. And then finally, you unlock flying, and every limiter is disabled. Every bound broken, as you can reach anything and anywhere in this game. You've trotted through Mira on foot, braving the dangers of the wild. You've rediscovered it all with your scale and managed to fight enemies once thought to be too monolithic to overcome, and you scaled cliff sides and ditches once thought to be impenetrable. Now your mastery of this world comes into fruition, as you can now fully and freely explore everywhere. New locations, once just out of reach, now also become open to you, like floating sky islands, the peaks of certain mountains, or even giant flowers. You crawled, then you walked, and now it's time to grow wings and soar. It's liberating. Don't worry, blaring in your ears is the perfect musical accompaniment to this wave of adrenaline that washes over you as you now realize everything built up to this. All those times you had to plan what route to take. Every time you accidentally pulled a mob. Every time you overcame a challenge and an obstacle, it all built up to this. You know this world. You know Mira. It's something you discovered and then rediscovered, and now it's time to truly make it your own. It's an absolutely wonderful form of progression that I've never to this day gotten out of any other game besides the original version of Xenoblade X.
Call it New Los Angeles.
There's a bunch of smaller elements to X that I absolutely adore, and I want to highlight those elements right now. The barracks customization is a tad limited, but I love collecting holo figures from big story moments or other quests and the things that I've done. It adds a bit of personality to your barracks, which is also your main hangout for the game. Having multiplayer here is also really cool and good. I love MMORPGs, and being able to see my friends and to use their characters is really dang cool. And I love the idea of being able to pair up with your friends for various online missions. Even if they get kinda rolled over by high-level skills, it's still really fun to blast those fights in a squad. I love that in Definitive Edition, if you fully trick out your squad with race-filled skills and use the cruise mode, they fly in formation. It looks so dang cool. The music is so different to the rest of the series, but I think Sawano absolutely outdid himself with the soundtrack. It's varied, I love vocal tracks, and this OST is riddled with them. The music gives off this high energy sci-fi feel, but also these more almost tranquil songs, and it just fits the atmosphere so well. I mean, just go listen to Requiem. It's a freaking journey of a song. I love the customization for the gameplay. I've talked about this so much before, but it deserves the recognition. I love maxing out a class and then being able to mix and match various weapons together for my own cool build that I can make. With a little bit of thought, you can come up with some crazy combinations or learn of crazy combinations and then strive for them. It feels guided initially, but once you have a grasp on things, the game really does take the training wheels off and just lets you go and come up with some wacky build that can do insane damage or allow you to survive insane things. Speaking of gameplay, Overdrive is so dang fun. Once you get the hang for it, it becomes so fast and vicious that it gives X's gameplay this unique charm to it that honestly mirrors what I love about the game overall. The more you're willing to learn about it and get a mastery of, the better it'll feel and the more you'll get out of it. You can go from initial uses of Overdrive that don't last too long or do that much damage to getting crazy uptime and dumping Titanic-sized buckets of damage onto opponents and just really turn the tide of certain fights. Also, let's just appreciate the appearance system of gear in X as well. You can dress your character up and turn them really into your own. I loved customizing how my character looked, but I also loved customizing how NPCs look, my main party members. It's a great system that I hope returns in the future for Xenoblade. Let's also just appreciate the day and night cycle in this game, by the way. It's my favorite of any game ever. I mean, each zone truly comes into its own with each different time of day. The lighting in Xenoblade X is absolutely gorgeous, and I love how different these zones can look and feel depending on the weather and the time of day. For a game all about experiencing the world, there's so many different ways that these zones are portrayed over your adventures that it really makes Mira feel alien and absolutely engrossing. God, it's basic, but customizing the colors of my Skell is also so much fun. I love having my Ares 90 emit red exhaust. I love coloring the Skells for my party members to give them an aesthetic that I think works with them. I also love throwing the crapper Skell that I don't put much thought into onto whoever's ticking me off the most at that point of time.
Call it New Los Angeles.
I think I've thoroughly covered why I love Xenoblade X so much and why it's such a phenomenal game, but there was a statement that I made at the beginning of this video that I haven't really covered yet. I said that Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, and also honestly just X in general, is one of the most daring games ever made. A bold proclamation, but I honestly think it's true. Xenoblade X was always thought of as just a spin-off game compared to the numbered games by most people. It was just a cool little sci-fi side story compared to the main series, which was far more focused on cutscenes and cinematic ways of conveying the narrative, and it stayed that way for most people until Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed came out. And in the radio scene, there was a mention of Project Exodus, the same project name that the White Whale was a part of for Xenoblade X. Now, it's probably not the same Project Exodus, but it did get the conversation started. I mean, after all, it is the same project name that the White Whale was a part of for Xenoblade X, but it's Monolith. They never try to weave in elements of a story into the canon over the course of many years, right? Oh. Some people even doubted the return of X to begin with. They didn't view it to be important enough. And there I was, having my brain consumed by Xenoblade X, knowing how good it is, and one fateful morning I sit down at my desk with a bagel in hand, opening up my browser to find a cooking video to watch while I eat, and my eyes land on one video in my recommended. The shadow-dropped announcement of Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, with a full trailer. And to say that I was excited would be a gross understatement. A game that many thought would be forgotten on the Wii U of all consoles makes its triumphant return with a new art style in tow, a new gameplay mechanic, and that's it, right? Well, Xenoblade X Definitive Edition does more than just slightly modify the base experience. It adds a whole new story after the events of the base game, a game which ended in one of the most blue-ballsing cliffhangers in all of gaming, where massive revelations occurred with no follow-up in sight, no elaboration. Chapter 13 of Definitive Edition addressed everything, and it didn't go the safe route at all. It could have just simply done something interesting with Mira, done what many thought would be a natural follow-up to the story of X, keep it its own separate thing, because how could it connect to the main trilogy after all? Well, what Chapter 13 firmly cemented was not only connecting X as a story to the stories of 1, 2, 3, it also firmly entrenched itself into the story of Monolith's previous series back when they were still with Bandai Namco, Xenosaga. It connected everything. Do you have any idea how crazy that is? Most modern Xenoblade fans haven't even probably heard of Xenosaga, let alone played them. Do you know how big of a set of nuts Monolith have for going out of their way to make it all fit together? Cohesively, I might add as well. Especially if you have played Saga like I have. On my stream, it works. It just simply works. And it flows, and it connects, and it's grandiose. And what Monolith did at the end of all these years is take the game that everyone thought was this weird little side project and put it as the connecting node for decades worth of comprehensive, rich, and beautiful storytelling, characters, worlds, and it's so dang good. Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition didn't just turn out to be the culmination of decades of work from Monolith Soft. It's also the launching point for the future of this series. It brings back enemies from Xenosaga and cements them as one of the biggest threats moving forward. It establishes and fleshes out so much over overarching backstory for Xeno overall, and they didn't have to do any of this. That's the thing. They could have just played it safe. They could have just kept it separate and be its own little side funny thing. But no, they wanted to reveal that it was the focal point. It's what everything was building to. The follow-up we had been waiting for a decade to experience to X turned out not to just be the wrap-up to X that we wanted, but the culmination of all of Xeno. What a ballsy direction. And if you know Xeno lore, it all works like I said. It's not like it comes from nowhere. It was all foreshadowed. It makes sense within established rules going all the way back to Xenosaga 1. Monolith Soft had a story they clearly wanted to tell. And even if some people wouldn't get it because of how far back it truly goes, they wanted to tell it. And you know what? I absolutely love that. Tell your story. Be as crazy and wacky as you want to be, and tell the story you truly want to tell. That is what X is. That is why I love X so much, and continue to love it even more the more I think back on it. If you haven't played it yet, I thoroughly recommend it. If you have played it before, play it again. You'll probably notice some crazy new stuff. And if you just couldn't get it to stick before, go in with fresh eyes and be willing to slow things down and take the game one step at a time. Too often nowadays are we far too objective focused instead of enjoying the journey, the ground we walk, and each step we take. To breathe and relax and enjoy the sights, the sounds, the individual smaller moments. Xenoblade X is a world. Treat it like one, instead of an amusement park. It's one of the bravest, boldest, most unique and special games I've ever had the pleasure to play that I thoroughly look forward to revisiting many times in the future. My advice for approaching Xenoblade X, not just for those playing it, but also for Monolith, is honestly a quote from one of my favorite songs. Believe your choices made you strong.
Call it New Los Angeles.
And that is my retrospective on Xenoblade Chronicles X. What a journey it's been for this game. From unimportant spin-off to the central pillar holding it all together. But here's where you come in. Leave a comment down below with what you would love to see out of the future of Xenoblade. And if you just simply don't know, tell me what your favorite Xenoblade game is and what was your favorite moment from it. I would love to hear your thoughts, hear your opinions, and hear perspectives. For me, it'll be really hard to beat the ending to X, especially the ending to Chapter 13. That was just... dang, man, that was so good. And while you're down there, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. And I mentioned how important Xenosaga is to everything here, and how X firmly solidified its importance to the overall story. And if you want to hear why I believe that Xenosaga deserves and should get a remaster or a remake or just even a port, you should check out this video right here, because Xenosaga deserves a comeback. It's so dang good. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye everybody, until we meet again!